Welcome to another episode of Ghosts of Tombstone. Today, we journey through the tumultuous life of Wyatt Earp, a man whose name is synonymous with the law and order of the Old West, yet whose story is more complex than legend allows. Wyatt Earp, an iconic figure of American folklore, is often hailed as a hero, a steadfast marshal who brought justice to the lawless frontier towns. But beneath this veneer of valor lies a tale riddled with controversy, a narrative where the line between lawman and outlaw blurs. Before we dive into the intriguing world of the Wild West, we have a small favor to ask. If you enjoy our content, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to the Facts Intrigue channel. Engaging with our videos helps boost our presence on YouTube, allowing our channel to grow and thrive. Plus, you wouldn't want to miss out on our upcoming videos, especially with our Ghosts of Tombstone series where we bring the notorious figures of the Wild West to life. And it's not just the bad guys who have tales to tell, we're also gearing up for our Bad Girls of the Wild West series, unveiling the stories of the daring and dangerous women who made their mark on history. So make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned for more thrilling adventures. Now on with the video. Wyatt Earp. Born in 1848 in Illinois, Wyatt Earp's early life set the stage for the man he would become. The Earp family moved westward, seeking prosperity, but young Wyatt was soon thrust into the crucible of the Civil War. Though he never saw combat, the tumult of these years left an indelible mark. While the Civil War cast a long shadow over young Wyatt's early years, it was within the confines of a bustling household that his character was first shaped. Wyatt Barry Stapp Earp was one of Nicholas Porter Earp and Virginia and Cooksey's brood of children. Growing up as one of the 6 Earp brothers and a sister, life in the Earp household was never dull. The Earps were a family constantly on the move, seeking out new opportunities on the ever-expanding frontier. Nicholas Earp, a man of ambition and resilience, instilled in his children the values of perseverance and justice. However, the path of the young Earp was not without its tribulations. Tragedy struck early when Wyatt was just a toddler. His older sister Martha passed away at a tender age, a loss that brought home the harsh realities of life in the 19th century. While the specific cause of her death is not widely documented or confirmed, it is known that life during the 19th century, especially on the frontier, was fraught with hardships and health challenges. Common causes of death during that time included infectious diseases, which were rampant and often untreatable due to the lack of modern medicine. The Earp family, like many others of the era, likely faced such challenges, which could have contributed to Martha's untimely death. It was in these formative years, amidst the backdrop of familial love and loss, that the seeds of Wyatt's future were sown. Earp's journey to prominence began in earnest and he assumed the role of lawman in various frontier towns. In Wichita and later Dodge City, Wyatt's reputation as a steadfast marshal began to take shape. But it was in Tombstone, Arizona, where his legend would be forged. First, we have to ask, why did Wyatt Earp become a lawman? Well, it appears Wyatt Earp's journey to becoming a lawman was influenced by a combination of personal traits, family background, and the circumstances of his time. His father, Nicholas Earp, was known to have served in various law enforcement roles, including as a constable and a justice of the peace. So, this family connection to law enforcement, coupled with the values of justice and order instilled by his father, likely played a significant role in shaping Wyatt's early interest in upholding the law. I'm sure we have all heard the saying, the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. After the Civil War, the American West was in a period of rapid expansion and tumult. Towns like Wichita and Dodge City were booming with the cattle trade, but with this economic prosperity came chaos and lawlessness. Wyatt, drawn to these burgeoning frontier towns, saw an opportunity and a need for strong, principled law enforcement. His physical prowess, calm demeanor under pressure, and a keen sense of justice made him a natural fit for the role of a lawman. In Wichita and later in Dodge City, Wyatt Earp's reputation as a steadfast marshal began to take shape. He was known for his straightforward approach to enforcing the law, often favoring negotiation and disarming opponents over the use of lethal force. However, Earp was not averse to using his gun when the situation called for it, a trait that earned him respect, fear, and notoriety in equal measure. Wyatt's move into law enforcement was also likely influenced by practical considerations. In the chaotic environment of the frontier towns, being a lawman offered a semblance of stability and respectability. Moreover, it provided Earp with a platform to establish his own sense of order in the often unruly world of the Wild West. In summary, Wyatt Earp's transition to becoming a lawman was a product of his family background, personal qualities, and the needs and opportunities presented by the rapidly evolving frontier towns. His actions and decisions as a lawman in places like Wichita and Dodge City cemented his legacy as one of the most iconic figures of the American West. Tombstone, however, was the icing on the cake. The vast and untamed territories of the West called to Wyatt. It was here, in the melting pot of cultures and amidst the chaos of growth and greed, that Wyatt Earp's destiny as a lawman began to unfold. Drawn to the tumultuous life of the frontier towns, he would soon step into the role that history remembers him for. Behind the badge, Wyatt was a man of contradictions. Respected by some for his unwavering commitment to law, he was viewed by others as a man who skirted the edges of legality. His involvement in gambling, brothels, and his associations with known outlaws painted a different picture, one not often told in the tales of heroism. So, let's dig deeper into the ugly side of this notorious lawman. Wyatt Earp's life was filled with various ventures, some of which were on the fringes of the law, reflecting the complex nature of social norms and legal enforcement in the American frontier. Among his lesser-known endeavors was his involvement in the brothel business. Research shows that Wyatt Earp, along with his brother James, reportedly ran a brothel in Wichita, Kansas, for a time. It was not uncommon in frontier towns for individuals to engage in businesses that might be considered disreputable by today's standards. Brothels were a part of the landscape in many such towns, and lawmen like Earp sometimes found themselves involved in these establishments, either as protectors, owners, or both. While this aspect of his life is less celebrated, it underscores the complex moral and social dynamics of the time and place in which Earp lived. Did Wyatt own a brothel in Tombstone? While Wyatt Earp's life is well documented in many respects, there is some ambiguity and debate surrounding certain aspects of his activities, particularly regarding his involvement in brothels. In Tombstone, Wyatt Earp was known to have had various business interests and was involved in gambling operations. However, direct evidence of him running a brothel in Tombstone specifically is not as clear-cut. Some historical accounts suggest that Earp and his brothers had financial stakes in several establishments that might have included brothels. As mentioned earlier, these were common in many frontier towns, including Tombstone. However, these claims are often based on hearsay, conflicting reports, or sensationalized accounts. We could not find any sound evidence he owned a brothel during his time in Tombstone. At Facts Intrigue, we speculate that Wyatt Earp may have been indirectly involved in the brothel business, albeit discreetly or under the table, so to speak. This conjecture stems from his known associations with such establishments in other towns during his lifetime. However, it's important to clarify that this perspective remains speculative in nature, as concrete evidence to support this particular involvement in Tombstone is elusive. It's plausible that, if true, Earp's lack of direct involvement in the brothel business in Tombstone could have been influenced by other, more lucrative or controversial ventures available to him at the time, which we will get into in just a moment. These alternative sources of income might have rendered the brothel business less appealing or necessary for Earp, thereby making it a secondary consideration or even a moot point in his array of enterprises. Nevertheless, these remain suppositions in the complex tapestry of Wyatt Earp's life, a narrative as intriguing as it is enigmatic. Wyatt Earp's reputation as a lawman and a businessman in a tumultuous time and place makes it challenging to definitively confirm or deny certain aspects of his life without contemporary, substantiated evidence. As with many figures of the Old West, his life story is a blend of fact, folklore, and the personal biases of those who recorded the events of the time. So, let's get into some of those more controversial ventures, including the arrest of Wyatt Earp. Bank robberies and criminal activities. In our research, we found that there have been claims and rumors that Wyatt Earp was involved in criminal activities, including bank and stagecoach robberies. These allegations often stem from the accounts of Earp's detractors or from sensationalized reports that were common in the era's journalism. While these claims add intrigue to his character, they lack substantial evidence and are often contradicted by other historical records. So, we have no way of proving, especially after over 141 years at the time of this video, if Wyatt Earp was truly involved in such criminal activities. It makes for a great story, but there is no direct evidence to support it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your opinions in the comments below about Wyatt Earp's rumored involvement in stagecoach and bank robberies. Do you think there's truth to the tales, or are they just myths of the Wild West? And don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Your support helps our channel thrive and allows us to continue delivering these fascinating historical insights. Join the Facts Intrigue community and be part of our journey through the intriguing corridors of history. So, let's learn why we have a conflict of accounts regarding Wyatt Earp's alleged involvement in stagecoach and bank robberies. Wyatt Earp's life at the time, and like today, was documented by various sources, some of which were more interested in creating a captivating narrative than in strict adherence to the truth. Newspapers of the time were known for sensational reporting, and personal accounts by friends and enemies of Earp added layers of bias and perspective to his story. Earp's own accounts. Wyatt Earp was known to be protective of his own legacy. He collaborated with biographers and journalists, notably Stewart N. Lake, author of the biography, Wyatt Earp, Frontier Marshal. Earp's influence on these accounts likely skewed the portrayal of his life in a more favorable light, contributing to the legendary status he holds today. Legal records and testimonies. While allegations of criminal activities were made, our research showed that legal records and contemporaneous testimonies often provide a more balanced view. With this being said, Earp was however arrested, tried, and subsequently acquitted for various charges throughout his life. While not all his actions were beyond reproach, the claims of major crimes like bank robbery remain largely unsubstantiated in historical records. Could his reputation and that of his brothers, persuaded not guilty verdicts for those crimes he was charged with? Or was he really innocent of all charges? Let us know in the comments what you think. While Wyatt Earp's life was undoubtedly complex, and his actions as a lawman were sometimes controversial, the claims of his involvement in outright criminal activities such as bank robberies are not conclusively supported by historical evidence. Wyatt Earp's arrival to Tombstone, Arizona. Wyatt Earp and his brothers arrived in Tombstone, Arizona, in late 1879. They were attracted to the town due to the silver mining boom, which promised significant economic opportunities. Wyatt, along with his brothers Virgil and Morgan, and later joined by their younger brother Warren, ventured into various business and law enforcement endeavors during their time in Tombstone, marking the beginning of a significant and tumultuous period in their lives and in the history of the American West. At the time of Wyatt Earp's arrival in Tombstone in late 1879, the town did have a law enforcement structure in place, but it was a complex and often contentious system. Tombstone was located in Pima County until 1881, when it became part of the newly formed Cochise County. During Wyatt's early time in Tombstone, the law enforcement duties were mainly handled by the county sheriff and his deputies. When Wyatt and his brothers arrived, the Pima County Sheriff had jurisdiction over Tombstone. However, local law enforcement was perceived as inadequate or corrupt by many residents, which led to tensions and a sense of lawlessness. This situation was part of what prompted Wyatt's brother, Virgil Earp, to take on the role of Deputy U.S. Marshal for the area, and later, he also became the Town Marshal of Tombstone, an appointed position focused on enforcing town ordinances and maintaining order within the town itself. The complexities and limitations of law enforcement during that time, coupled with the rapid growth and economic boom of Tombstone, contributed to the volatile environment in which the Earps found themselves in. This backdrop set the stage for the series of events that led to the infamous gunfight at the OK Corral and the subsequent Earp Vendetta ride. The OK Corral and its aftermath. The gunfight at the OK Corral thrust Wyatt Earp into the annals of Wild West history. But the events that followed revealed an even darker side. His story is a vivid example of how the line between lawmen and outlaws could blur in the context of the American frontier, and how legends and myths can overshadow the human complexities of historical figures. The gunfight at the OK Corral is one of the most famous confrontations in the history of the American Wild West. This event took place in Tombstone, Arizona, on October 26, 1881, and it was the culmination of a long-simmering feud between the lawmen, represented by the Earps and their associates, and a loosely organized group of outlaws known as the Cowboys. Lead up to the OK Corral. The tension in Tombstone had been escalating due to various factors, including political divisions, business rivalries, and disputes over gambling and cattle rustling. The Earp brothers, Wyatt, Virgil, and Morgan, and their friend Doc Holliday represented the law and order side of these conflicts. On the opposing side were several members of the Cowboys, including Ike and Billy Clanton, Tom and Frank McClory, and others. Virgil Earp, the town marshal, was determined to enforce the town's ordinance against carrying firearms in town. The Cowboys were known to flout these laws, contributing to the volatile atmosphere. The day of the gunfight. On the afternoon of October 26, 1881, the Earps received word that the Cowboys were armed and gathering near the OK Corral. Virgil Earp, along with his brothers Wyatt and Morgan and their friend Doc Holliday, set out to disarm the Cowboys, as carrying weapons in town was against the law. The Cowboys present near the OK Corral included Ike and Billy Clanton, Tom and Frank McClory, and Billy Claiborne. The Earps and Holliday approached them, and despite Virgil's intention to resolve the situation peacefully, tensions quickly escalated. The gunfight. Shots were fired, and within just 30 seconds, the gunfight resulted in the deaths of Tom McClory, Frank McClory, and Billy Clanton. Ike Clanton and Billy Claiborne fled the scene. On the Earp side, Virgil and Morgan Earp were wounded, and Doc Holliday was grazed by a bullet. Wyatt Earp emerged from the fight without physical injury. The controversy over Tom McClory's involvement. One of the most controversial aspects of the gunfight is whether Tom McClory was armed. Some accounts suggest that Tom, like his brother Frank and Billy Clanton, was carrying a weapon and actively participated in the shootout. However, other narratives, including testimony from witnesses at the subsequent trial, indicated that Tom was unarmed or had deposited his weapons before the confrontation, intending to comply with the town's ordinance against carrying firearms. The question of Tom McClory's armament has been a point of debate among historians and has contributed to the differing interpretations of the Earps' actions. Was it a justified attempt by lawmen to enforce the law, or was it an excessive use of force against individuals who were not all actively posing a threat? The gunfight at the OK Corral has since become a symbol of the broader conflicts of the era between established law and the rugged individualism of the frontier. It's a story that has been retold and romanticized in numerous books, films, and other media, often blurring the lines between fact and fiction. The event and the individuals involved, including Tom McClory, continue to captivate the public's imagination and serve as a poignant reminder of the complexities of the American West. The Earp Vendetta Ride, a quest for retribution after the murder of his brother Morgan, saw Wyatt and his posse take the law into their own hands. The Earp Vendetta Ride was a pivotal and controversial chapter in the saga of Wyatt Earp and his brothers, unfolding in the wake of the turmoil and violence that erupted from the gunfight at the OK Corral. In the months following the gunfight at the OK Corral, tensions between the Earp faction and the Cowboys remained high. The situation escalated on the night of December 28, 1881, when Virgil Earp was ambushed and seriously wounded. The attack left him with a permanently damaged arm, effectively ending his career as a lawman due to the severity of his injuries. Then, on March 18, 1882, Morgan Earp was assassinated while playing billiards, a murder that shook the Earp family to its core. The launch of the Vendetta Ride. The killings of Morgan and near-fatal injury of Virgil were seen by Wyatt and his allies not just as personal tragedies but as direct challenges to their authority and safety. Frustrated by the lack of legal action and convinced that the local justice system was either unable or unwilling to prosecute the perpetrators, Wyatt decided to take matters into his own hands. Wyatt, along with Doc Holliday and other close associates, formed a posse. Though Wyatt had resigned as a deputy marshal by this point, he leveraged the authority of a federal posse comitatus to pursue those he held responsible for the attacks on his brothers. This marked the beginning of the Earp Vendetta Ride in late March 1882. The ride and its consequences. The Earp Vendetta Ride lasted for about 2 weeks, during which Wyatt Earp's posse hunted down and killed several men they believed were involved in the attacks on Virgil and Morgan. Among those killed were Frank Stillwell, whom Wyatt Earp suspected of being Morgan's assassin, and other figures associated with the cowboys. The ride ended when Wyatt and his men, pursued by law enforcement and labeled as outlaws by some, left Arizona territory and headed to Colorado. The vendetta ride solidified Wyatt Earp's legend but also polarized public opinion. To some, Wyatt was a hero, avenging the wrongs against his family and upholding justice where the legal system had failed. To others, he was a vigilante, taking the law into his own hands and exacting revenge outside the bounds of legal authority. The legacy of the vendetta ride. The Earp vendetta ride remains a subject of fascination and debate. It reflects the complexities of frontier justice, where the lines between right and wrong, legal and extra-legal, were often blurred. The ride is emblematic of the broader struggles of the era. A time when personal honor, family loyalty, and the quest for justice in an often lawless land drove men to extreme measures. It's a testament to the turbulent times of the Old West and the indelible mark left by Wyatt Earp and his brothers on American history and mythology. His story is a vivid example of how the line between lawmen and outlaws could blur in the context of the American frontier, and how legends and myths can overshadow the human complexities of historical figures. Wyatt's life after Tombstone was marked by a restless search for wealth and stability. His ventures into mining, boxing, and even advising film productions on the early westerns kept him in the public eye. Yet, controversies continued to shadow him, from accusations of manipulating law for personal gain to disputes over the true nature of the events he was part of. In his final years, Wyatt Earp lived in Colma, California and died on January 13, 1929. He passed away in Los Angeles, California, at the age of 80. The cause of his death was reported as chronic cystitis, a condition he had suffered from for many years. Chronic cystitis is a medical condition characterized by inflammation of the bladder. It's a form of urinary tract infection, UTI, that can persist over a long period. It is a very painful disease and surely did leading up to his death. Here is a little tad bit of information on Wyatt Earp's final location of residence. The small town of Colma is located in San Mateo County, California, and is known as the City of the Silent, because it has more dead residents than living ones. Colma has 17 cemeteries, where you can find the graves of not only Wyatt Earp, but Joe DiMaggio, and Levi Strauss, just to name a few famous people. Colma also has a historical museum, which showcases the town's colorful past and its role as a refuge for the dead. After his death, Wyatt Earp was buried in the Hills of Eternity Memorial Park, a Jewish cemetery near his home in Colma, California. This might seem an unusual choice for Earp, who was not Jewish, but he was interred there because his wife, Josephine Earp, was Jewish and it was her family plot. In accordance with her wishes, Wyatt was laid to rest beside her when she passed away many years later, in 1944. Their gravesite continues to be a point of interest for fans of Old West history and the legacy of Wyatt Earp. Reflection on Wyatt Earp's legacy. Wyatt Earp, a man revered and reviled, leaves behind a legacy as multifaceted as the era he lived in. His story, a complex tapestry of courage, ambition, and human frailty, challenges us to look beyond the myths, the good, bad, and the ugly, of the man behind the badge. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the life of Wyatt Earp. Let us know in the comments below if you think Wyatt Earp was a good guy or a bad guy. Stay tuned for more episodes of Ghosts of Tombstone, where we uncover the hidden stories of the Wild West.